Scott Pilgrim is a graphic novel book series that started in 2004 and has gained a cult following over the years. In 2010, they got a movie adaptation which didn't perform very well at the box office. There's many speculations that people think it's under promotion. But after a couple years after that movie came out, it has quite a big cult following for that movie. And there's a big fandom behind Scott Pilgrim. And just this year, it was announced that Scott Pilgrim, with all its original cast from the movie, was going to have an anime adaptation. And now that show is here. I have watched the movie. I just finished the show. And I'm going to convince you why you should watch Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Okay, boys, let's get into the plot of the show. So, the show starts off how the movie starts off. This boy is dreaming, and he sees this cool freaking emo skater girl just zooming around the desert where his dreams is for some reason. It's not really explained. And he wakes up, he's like, tells his gay roommate, aka Wallace, the best character in the freaking series. He's like, yo, I got a crush on this girl, I gotta find her, and little does he know, he sees this girl. And he has a huge crush on her and wants to date her. But, at the same time, he's dating a 17-year-old, named Knives. And she is, 17, and he is 23, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. He eventually meets her at this party, they go on a date, and, they just vibe. But, Wallace is like, yo, you gotta break up with this girl. You gotta do it. But his performance, and he doesn't end up doing it, and they both meet at the same time, and it gets pretty awkward. And he does his little performance. Then, one of the 7 evil exes shows up. Matthew Patel. And in the movie, they fight, and he automatically defeats him. This one, and it's not the case. He gets killed, as far as we know of, but he gets killed. And Matthew Patel, thinking like, yo, I just won. He goes to Gideon, the head leader of the 7 X's, and it's like, yo, I just killed this man. I think I should be in charge. If I fight you, I can take your empire. And he agrees. He's like, all right, bet. Gideon ends up getting his butt kicked and loses everything. Meanwhile, Nomona at the funeral is interrupted by that freaking Scott's ex, Envy, cast by Brie Larson. And they're at the funeral. And after the funeral, she goes home and has a dream and hears Scott calling out her name. And he is like far away the distance in the dreamland. And she wakes up and he's like, yo, Scott's alive. We learn about the different stuff. We see Matthew Patel start leading his little thing. Gideon is depressed boy, and he goes back to Julie's place, which is, I'm pretty sure, is a friend of Scott. And Nomona is very skeptical about Scott being dead, because she just had that vision. And so she does a little bit of investigating throughout the series. And, yeah, so she goes through the series. I'm just going to skip through it. She goes through each of one of her exes and interviews them. Meanwhile, young Neil sees this mysterious figure basically write a whole screenplay he was working on, and he makes that into a movie. And the boy, the man, the myth, the legend, Lucas Lee, is casted as Scott Pilgrim, and they're on the movie set, and shenanigans ensue, like freaking Troy the vegan falling in love with Wallace, because of course, why not? He has that irresistible charm, as we see in the movie, and he basically is taken off the list. And she starts to gather more clues from each of her exes, starts marking them off, and she learns that 1, it was the twins, 2, the robot that's been following him around has that portal, because the vegan portal can only be formed by vegans, and robots don't even eat anything, so I guess it makes sense. And that's who kidnapped Scott. She saw a videotape of the footage, and she tells everybody that suddenly Scott comes back. And this is episode 6 of the show. This is when he finally comes back. The anime wasn't lying. He really did take off. And so basically, after that, we go into what happened with Scott. He got kidnapped by the mysterious figure who turns out to be older him. And they turn around, and he basically wanted to make sure that Scott never met Nomona. They never dated, because in the future they end up getting divorced. And yeah, basically that's what happens. He ends up going back with help with future Nomona, who has freaking DeLorean rollerblades, which is sick as hell. And yeah, but for some reason there's a force field stopping them from kissing, so they gotta figure this out. And Knives pitched a musical to Matthew, and he agrees, so they gotta go to the little premiere of the musical after the movie got shut down. And this is where we get the finale. So they keep going through the evil X's, and it doesn't seem like they're behind it until they get freaking teleported into this mysterious land after Gideon tries to get revenge by blowing up everything. And turns out it's even older Scott, voiced by Weird Al Yankovic for some reason, which was a surprise. And he's like, I told you not to do that. I told you not to date her. I put some weird juice thing in your drink to make you stop from kissing her because of the DNA. And so I gotta kill you now to make sure you never date Ramona. If I can't have her, no one can. And they start freaking fighting in the freaking sickest anime. One thing I want to say, the freaking fights in this are so freaking awesome. Every single one is awesome. And they fight, and eventually even older Nomona comes back, and she's like, bro, what the heck, I've always loved you, stop doing this, why are you fighting all these weird people? And something really really weird happens. I'm still freaking trying to wrap my brain about it. Is that the past Nomona and the future Nomona go together and become a freaking supersonic Nomona, and they freaking like combined as one entity, and they're like, it's weird. The freaking Super Nomona sends even older Scott back to his universe, or his time. And then it blacks out, and they're back in the theater again. And the musical's over. And that's about it for that part. And, you know, they go out, they live happily ever after. And then that's about the end of the show. That's a very quick, simplified rundown of the show. You should definitely go watch it still. But now let's get to why I think it's so good. I do not think this show is perfect. It definitely has this problem. My major problem with the show is Scott Pilgrim isn't even in the show half the time. He shows up in episode 1, very end of episode 6, 7, and 8. His name is in the title. He's even in half the episodes. This is more Nomona takes off. Nomona's the main character. It's all about Nomona and her journey and her finding Scott. It's a little annoying, but I think because of that, Nomona's character is really, really interesting, and I really like her as a main character. It's just, I wanted to see more of Scott, because I really like Michael Cera as Scott Pilgrim, and I came to watch a Scott Pilgrim show, not a Nomona show. And it's kind of a whodunit, which I really like. One thing I want to praise is the art style. It is amazing. Whoever freaking animated on this, congrats. Because this is one of the best looking shows I have ever seen. I don't say it's on Spider-Verse level, but like, it looks beautiful. Every shot looks amazing. Expressions are great. And yeah, I like what they did with... I was a little concerned on what they were going to do, because I was hoping it was going to be a beat for beat of just the movie. And I thought it was going to be like that when it started out. But I like what they did. It kind of interpreted it in the movie parts into the show a little bit. I like the plot that they went with. I think it worked really well. It was funny. The action was great. And I think they did the series justice. I've never been a huge Scott Pilgrim fan. I've only watched the first movie, and now the show, but that's all my knowledge on Scott Pilgrim. Haven't read any of the books, graphic novels. But from what I've heard of it, I think it's pretty. This art style is similar to the graphic novels, and that part's really good. And I'm pretty sure. I think it's pretty faithful. The movie, at least, is pretty faithful to the book, if I remember correctly. I don't know. I haven't read it, but from what I've heard, it's pretty faithful to the book. And I feel like it was different, but it wasn't so different that it felt like completely different show. I feel like I still was watching a Scott Pilgrim entity thing. And also I liked the freaking Evil Exes. They were all enjoyable to watch. I think my favorite would probably be Matthew Patel. I feel like he got a lot to do in this show, and he was so enjoyable to watch every single time he was on screen. He's so freaking awesome. And I like that we got to see more of him. And Gideon was really good too. I like this version of Gideon more than the movie one. I don't know, the movie one's just like... I don't know, I just like this one version better than the movie version. That's just my opinion. I guess I never know opinions about that. And one thing too is also the video game references are really cool. The 8-bit title screens, the Street Fighter-esque, the freaking KOs, the Sonic references. There's a lot of Sonic references in this show. But yeah, I think it was just done really well, and then there's a lot of care into it. Another thing you gotta praise it for, they got every single cast member back. Every single one. They were all on board to do it. Like, that's tough to do. You got Chris Evans, Brie Larson, Michael Cera. Like, come on. They got everybody back. Every single person came back for this show, and I think it just made it so much better that they did that. And they're all great as their characters. Every performance I love. And one final thing. I just love the music in this show. Freaking opening is a slap. I forget what this song's called. I think it's called I Live or something. It's played at the very beginning of the show and the very end of the show. Freaking peak song. I like the black sheep from the movie. It's referenced in this show, but they don't really get to play it. But yeah, one thing I've seen, and this is a lot with any type of show or anything related to this, people are saying it's woke, and I don't really think it is. Mostly because of Wallace, and I'm like, have you watched the original movie? That's his whole thing. Wallace is just the freaking cool gay best friend who has an ultimate riz. And I didn't have a problem with it. I mean, with Troy, I didn't have a problem with it. It was interesting. I mean, it wasn't like in your face, or anything. I thought it was fine. And I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, this show's woke. Like, you don't know what woke is, bro. He's like, this isn't Scott Pilgrim. Bro, did you even watch the movie or read the book? Freaking, what do you mean? And like, it wasn't too bad either. I mean, like, you're being ridiculous. I've seen woke stuff, and I know what freaking woke is, and I don't have a problem with this. It's not out of nowhere. They didn't do it just to do it. It's just what the characters are. So, you know. One thing I would also like to praise it for is that I really like the ending for this show. It was just cool seeing everyone resolve, and it was just really, really cool. And one thing that's a bit of a running gag, is freaking Nimona dyeing her hair every 2 seconds, bro. She's dyed her hair more times than Dan TDM and Ninja combined, bro. Literally every episode's dyeing her hair. It's such a funny running gag. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Just every single episode, I gotta change my hair color for the episode. Which I think is, now that I think about it, I think each hair color is representative of the freaking ex or person she interacts with the most. It's like, she had the green hair with vegan, and the vegan's portals are green. And I don't know, I have to go back. It seems, now I'm thinking about it, might have been intentional for each hair color specifically. And like blonde at the end, you know, kind of just doing her own thing. But yeah, I really want it to get a season 2. I think it deserves a season 2. And I think you guys should give it a shot. If you haven't watched it, watch it. I would recommend watching the movie first, right before you watch the show. It's not like you won't understand anything. I think it's just a better experience if you do. But yeah, I think it's definitely a welcome addition. One of the best Netflix originals I have seen. Anyways, goodbye.